Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tin Man Sport Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm finishing off my Midnight Tales marathon for you guys. And the first video I'm reacting to is 6 Most Disturbing True Middle of Nowhere Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
This happened to me about 16 years ago when I was 12.
Okay.
I was in a scout group in Spain. Scouting here's a bit more relaxed and modern than what you might picture. Every summer, we had this tradition called a raid, a multi-day hike through the wilderness where we camped and navigated on our own. No adults, no supervision, just us kids with maps, food, and whatever survival knowledge we picked up.
Yeah, that does sound kind of relaxed. Not having any supervision while you're camping or going fishing, hunting out in the woods is kind of amazing if you ask me. I can imagine exploring the woods in Spain in the summertime is going to be really hotter than over here in the US.
That year, my group of 15 kids, both guys and girls aged 12 to 14, planned a 3-day hike through the Pyrenees, a beautiful but rugged mountain range in northeastern Spain. We were supposed to climb a nearly 10,000-foot mountain and camp by a glacial lake near the summit. We knew it would be a challenge, but we were excited. We set out in the morning and hiked all day, but by early evening, we realized we weren't going to reach the lake before dark. So we found a flat spot off the trail and set up camp. Just some tarps and sticks near a big rock. Nothing fancy. The closest road was about 6 miles away, and the nearest village even farther. We were deep in the mountains, completely isolated, but we felt safe and free.
Yeah, you would think you'd be feeling safe and free right now, but I mean, if you needed help, you have to either walk or run a lot of miles just to get to a village or neighboring town. If I went out back camping like this, I'm making sure I'm bringing me a satellite phone. It always pays to be extra prepared, if I do say so myself.
It was actually kind of magical. After dinner, with some daylight left, a few of us volunteered to go refill our water bottles at a spring we'd passed earlier. I was one of them. It was me and 3 friends, and we grabbed a couple of flashlights just in case it got dark before we got back. Sure enough, night fell while we were walking back. We could still hear our group in the distance, laughing and singing. But then one of my friends froze. He pointed at something just off the trail, a reflective roadside marker, the kind you'd see next to a highway. Only this one was shattered, torn to pieces, and it definitely hadn't been there earlier. Just like that, the whole vibe shifted. We weren't relaxed anymore. We were on edge. We rushed back to the shelter and told the others what we found. Panic spread fast. We were just kids, remember, and our minds jumped straight to worst-case scenarios. Who else was out here with us? Why would someone drag a destroyed road sign all the way into the wilderness? 2 of the older kids, both 14, decided to go check things out. They grabbed flashlights, each took a knife and a whistle, so we'd know if they got in trouble, and disappeared into the darkness. The rest of us huddled inside the shelter, silent and terrified. Some of the girls were crying. Someone suggested singing to distract ourselves. So we did, quietly, in shaky voices. But even that didn't last long. Then we heard it, whistling. 2 sharp blasts coming fast. Our friends burst back into camp, out of breath and completely panicked. They told us they'd found something disturbing, a tall wooden stake standing upright in the ground, covered in blood. A lot of blood. Too much for any of us to stay calm. Kids were crying again, some praying. I sat there gripping my knife, heart pounding, convinced we weren't going to make it through the night. The older boys said they were going back out, said they wanted to confront whoever was out there. And if things went bad, they'd draw him away from us.
That's mighty brave of you, fellas, but that sounds like you might have a deranged lunatic guy living out in them wooded areas of the mountains. He might have followed you guys up there and decided to scare the crap out of you. Might end up killing you. Head back down, because if you try to go up to the top of the mountain, that guy will probably follow you there. Oh man, this is really creepy.
We begged them not to go, but none of us had the nerve to stop them. They left. We were frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. The shelter was completely still, except for the sound of heavy breathing and the occasional sniffle. I remember sitting there thinking, I'll do whatever it takes to survive tonight. If someone shows up, I'm not going down without a fight. Minutes dragged by, and then we heard footsteps. Fast ones, running, then screaming. Not the kind of scream you fake to scare someone. Full-on panic. We saw our two friends sprinting back toward us yelling. They were being chased. And behind them, two men. We all braced ourselves. Knives out, ready to defend ourselves. The men stopped just at the edge of the shelter. And then, they started laughing. They were our camp leaders. They'd followed us out there, stayed hidden, and decided to prank us. Everything. The broken sign, the blood, the rabbit stick. It was all a setup. A twisted joke. We didn't think it was funny. Some kids had trouble breathing from how hard they were crying. A few of us were still clutching our knives. We'd been ready to kill someone. And that's when the leaders realized how badly they had messed up. Their prank had pushed 13 kids to the brink of violence. They apologized over and over, but we didn't care. We just wanted them gone, but also not too far, because we were still too terrified to sleep alone. They ended up staying the night with us, but it took months to forgive them. That night is burned into my memory. Not because it turned violent, but because it almost did. Now that I'm older, I think about how close that night came to ending differently. If someone had been out there to hurt us, they would have picked the wrong group of kids. We were scared out of our minds, but we were also completely ready to fight.
Well, thank God it was their camp leaders. But I agree with the kids right here. They took it way too far on their little prank. Because imagine they walked up on their campsite and then the kids didn't recognize them right away. They probably would have got stabbed in the throat with one of their knives. They probably did it just to see if they were alert and prepared for any attack, but they did kind of take it too far.
This is one of those stories where I look back and think, what the hell was I thinking? It happened a couple years ago, and honestly, I'm just grateful it didn't end worse than it did. I'd been chatting with this guy on a dating app for a few weeks. He seemed cool, normal even, and eventually we decided to meet up. Here's the part where I made a dumb call. Instead of driving myself to the date, I let him pick me up. My anxiety about driving can get bad, and it just felt easier at the time. But man, I should have just powered through it. What I did was straight up reckless, and I know that now. So he pulls up outside my place and tells me we're going out for sushi. Great, I love sushi. We hop in his car, he puts the restaurant into the GPS, and off we go. Everything seems fine at first. Casual chat, small talk, normal stuff. But then I start noticing something weird outside my window. Trees. A lot of them. Like dense woods, middle of nowhere kind of scenery. And suddenly, that friendly vibe in the car shifted. I asked him, aren't we supposed to be heading toward town? This doesn't look right. He glances at the GPS and says, I swear, this is just where it's taking us. I didn't pick this way. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was freaking out. The road was narrow, winding, and not a soul in sight.
Let me guess. This lady had a lot of trust in this guy when she picked him on Tinder. And when they go out for the first time, he's really acting sketchy and driving off a different path than what the GPS is saying, but he's acting like, oh, that's where the GPS is telling me to go. I bet you he's probably a kidnapper and using that Tinder app to lure in helpless girls. But I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead with any conclusions, so let's just see what happens next.
I couldn't even see a house or gas station, just forest. He must have noticed I looked like I was about to jump out of the car, because he kept saying, "I'm not doing anything weird, I swear." But when I tried to pull up the GPS on my phone to check the route myself, that's when I noticed I had no signal. That sent me over the edge. He kept driving and insisting that the GPS just chose the weirdest possible route. Meanwhile, I was sweating and freezing at the same time, trying to act like I wasn't seconds away from a panic attack. He even tried to joke. "If you're thinking I've got a body in the trunk or a shovel, I promise I don't." After what felt like an eternity, we actually did pull up at a sushi place. I couldn't believe we'd made it. I was shaking when I stepped out of the car. It had taken us nearly an hour to get there through this backwoods horror movie route. But part of me figured, hey, he had his chance. If he was going to kill me, he could have done it by now. Maybe the guy's just socially clueless. We sit down. I try to eat, but my nerves are still shot. That's when he hits me with the most bizarre follow-up. He leans in and goes, "So, when do you think we'll have sex?" I nearly choked on my sashimi. "Excuse me?" He goes on, like he's negotiating some deal. "You know, are you the type who waits a day, a week, a month? Just so I know." I just sat there, stunned. Didn't even know how to respond.
No man should not ask a woman what time you think you be good for sex. I mean, are you out of your mind? If she ain't ready to do that yet, if she ain't ready, and she probably don't even trust you enough to even consider doing that with you. But yeah, she did have a point. If he wanted her dead, he would have done it in the car and dished her body somewhere. But that was a weird statement he said before they got there. Said, "Hey, I don't have no dead body or shovel in the back trunk of my car." Makes you wonder, does he? And he's trying to make a joke out of it. I don't know. But this is already getting weird. And if she says no, she ain't into that, he's going to keep on harassing her and stalking her until she probably gives in. But I'm getting sick vibes off of this guy.
Then he says, "Well, I'm just saying, I can't wait a whole month." I didn't say much after that. The whole rest of the date was painfully awkward. I just waited for the check and ordered an Uber. No way was I getting back in that car with him again. The moment I got into the Uber, I noticed something that made my stomach drop all over again. The route home took 15 minutes. 15. And it was all normal roads. Traffic lights, other cars, people walking around. Not a single dirt trail or creepy forest in sight. It didn't add up. Why did it take him nearly an hour to get me to the same place my Uber left in 15 minutes? Was his GPS really that messed up? Or did he take me on a detour for some other reason? I'll never really know. Maybe he was just weird and clueless. Maybe it was all innocent. Or maybe I got extremely lucky. That night was a massive wake-up call. No matter how normal someone seems online, don't ever, ever let a stranger from a dating app pick you up. Meet in public. Drive yourself. Trust your instincts.
That is true. I'm going to take that advice if I ever start dating somebody. Because if you let somebody pick you up at your place, then they'll know where you live at. And then, if you say that you don't want to continue dating him, they will probably end up coming back and might even rob you or murder you. But yeah, that is kind of fishy that he would take a long way to get to that sushi place instead of like 15 minutes from there to her place with the Uber. Probably planning out where to drop her body at if he killed her. Maybe. I don't know. But luckily she did the right thing and paid for her food and got out of there and not continue dating that guy. Because that is weird.
Back in 2015, when I was just 16, I lived in this tiny, worn-out beach town that barely showed up on a map. It was the kind of place where nothing ever happened, so forgotten and remote that even the neighboring towns probably didn't know we existed. For us teenagers, there were only three things to do: hit the movies, swim at the beach, or hang out at this sad excuse for an amusement spot called Miller's Funpark. Now, calling it a fun park is generous. The arcade machines barely worked, the batting cages looked like they'd collapse if you looked at them wrong, and the mini golf course was covered in weeds. But the go-karts, that's where things got sketchy. These weren't the kind of go-karts you see at commercial parks. These were rickety death traps on wheels, speeding around a track that was all sharp turns and loose gravel. One summer night, my cousin Emma and I decided to hit up the go-karts for a little fun. It was close to 10 p.m., late enough that we knew it'd be mostly deserted.
To be honest with you, that type of town they're describing here would seem like a dreadful place to even live in. I'm sorry, but if this fun park has hardly any arcade machines that work half the time, and their bumper car track is like on loose gravel instead of like on a smooth floor, I don't see how in the world that park is even still in operation. Like, who would have a fun park and not keep it up, and it's got like weeds growing in certain places? Really weird. But if that's all they got to do in that town, that's fine and dandy. But it sounds like more like an abandoned amusement park where everything's still running.
Which honestly was part of the appeal. I picked her up and we drove out to Miller's, which sits at the edge of a wide open field. The beach is a few miles down in one direction, and on the opposite side of the road are dense woods that seem to stretch on forever. The whole place feels like it's hanging off the edge of civilization. When we got there, the lot was practically empty. There were maybe a couple of teen guys messing around in the arcade, and this older man, probably mid-60s, sitting alone on a bench by the rusted batting cages. We didn't think much of it, paid for our tickets, and walked over to the go-karts. I was so focused on not flipping the cart on the sharp turns that I didn't notice the old guy had wandered over to the fence until our last lap. That's when I saw him standing there, just behind the barrier, staring at me with the creepiest expression I've ever seen. It was like this cracked smile frozen on his face, and his eyes. Man, those eyes were dark and weirdly shiny. Trying to shake it off, I handed our second ticket to the guy running the ride, who looked way too high to function, and went for another spin. But this time, I couldn't concentrate. I kept glancing toward the fence, and sure enough, that guy hadn't moved. Every time I passed him, he was still there, eyes locked on me, just standing there like he had all the time in the world. What really got me was that he was standing right next to the exit gate, and we only had one ticket left. After that last lap, we had to pull back into the lanes, and of course, he was still there, basically hovering by the gate. As I stepped out of the cart, I glanced at Emma to see if she was catching any of this, but she seemed oblivious, just laughing about how she beat me. As I pushed open the gate, the man stepped directly in front of me. "Hey there," he said, voice scratchy and dry like he hadn't had water in hours. He reeked of cigarettes. "What are you cute girls doing all alone out here?" Emma walked up beside me, now clearly catching on that something was off. What?" she asked, eyebrows raised. He smiled wider, and it gave me the worst chill down my back. "So, late at night. Do your parents know where you are?" Trying to stay calm, I lied. "Yeah, they're actually waiting for us. We need to get going." I tried to walk past him, but he stepped in closer and grabbed my shoulder. "Nah," he said. "I saw you two pull up alone." My stomach twisted. So he had been watching us. Then he said, "Why don't I walk you to your car?" I was frozen, looking at Emma for help. Without missing a beat, she stepped between us and said sharply, "Actually, we were just heading to the arcade. Her boyfriend's meeting us." Total bluff. My boyfriend wasn't even in town, but it worked. His face darkened. and the fake smile dropped. Boyfriend, he muttered, like it left a bad taste in his mouth. Emma didn't wait. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the arcade. It was nearly empty now. No workers, no teens, but it felt safer than being outside with him.
That was a good move, but my stomach would be dropping too if you told a lie about parents waiting for you, but then somebody said, "No, I saw you come in by yourself." So that tells me right there that guy is one of them sexually active predator. Oh man, if he comes in that arcade, they better start getting to their car and go. If I was there and I saw that guy grab one of them ladies by the shoulder, then I'd be like, "Hey, what's your problem, dude? Let go of her. She don't need no help getting to her car."
We ducked behind a claw machine, both of us out of breath. I whispered, "I left my phone in the car." She groaned. "Mine's charging at home. We're going to have to make a run for it." "You're insane," I hissed. "What if he's waiting out there?" We went back and forth on it. Emma suggested asking the go-kart worker for help, but the guy looked like he couldn't spell help, let alone provide it. Finally, Emma stood up. "We just have to go, now." We crept out, scanning the area. The place was dead quiet. Every shadow looked like him. Emma told me to get my keys ready as we neared my car, and I stopped dead. "I didn't lock the car," I whispered. She looked at me wide-eyed. "What?" "I didn't lock it. What if he's inside?" Emma started moving toward the driver's side to check, and I tried to hold her back, but she slipped away. She leaned in, squinting into the darkness. Then, out of nowhere, we heard it. Heavy footsteps pounding against pavement. We both spun around. He was sprinting at us, full speed, coming out of the woods like he'd been hiding there, just waiting. We screamed and ran for the car. I reached the handle, locked. Thank God I had locked it. My hands were shaking as I tried to unlock it. Emma was yelling from the passenger side. I finally flung the door open and dove in just as he reached me. He started slamming his fists against the window, shouting something I couldn't even make out. I hit the lock button and jammed the key into the ignition, still crying. Emma was shouting at me to go, and I did. Reversed so fast I almost hit a fence, then whipped the car around and floored it. He was still chasing us, sprinting down the road, but we didn't stop until we hit town. Emma had to help me steer a few times because I could barely see through the tears. Somehow, we made it back to my house, hearts racing, hands trembling. We never told anyone, not our parents, not our friends. Looking back, I wish we had. Maybe it would have stopped that guy from hurting someone else. But at the time, we were scared they'd blame us for being there so late or not being more careful. We never went back to Miller's Funpark after that night. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone listening, never assume some sleepy little town is too boring for bad things to happen.
Well, she got a point. You would think a quiet town might not be as active with criminal activity. Well, think again. This proves it. But man, I was just thinking, why'd you not lock the door on your car? Because I was thinking he probably would have got in the car if he found out it was unlocked and hid there until they got out. But also, if your phone was in there, he probably would have took that too. But thankfully, it was locked, and they were able to unlock it to get in quick and drive out of there like their lives depended on it. But yeah, that is one scary story. It just seems like every time you look, there's always an incident at fun parks or carnivals. They always lure in the creepies.
This happened when I was 14. I was asked to babysit my 3 younger cousins, 8, 4, and just barely 1, in this ridiculously remote mountain area of Pennsylvania. My aunt and uncle had a wedding to attend over an hour away, and they wouldn't be back until late. Their place was perched on the side of a mountain, and when I say remote, I mean no neighbors in sight, no streetlights, and pitch black once the sun dipped. Their back deck had a steep drop, like 15 feet straight down a rocky hill that sloped into a river. Just getting there required knowing exactly where to turn, otherwise you'd never find it. This wasn't the kind of place someone could accidentally drive to. Before they left, they gave me a phone number next to the landline, some pizza for dinner, and told me to call if anything went wrong. Cell service out there was a joke, so the landline was my only option. The baby was already asleep in the crib. The 4-year-old wasn't feeling great, and had passed out on the couch with the TV on, and I was upstairs in the loft playing Guitar Hero with my 8-year-old cousin. The setup of the loft was kind of perfect. I could see the living room below to check on the little ones, and directly to the right was a massive window that looked out over the driveway.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind living in some mountain home like that, but I'd rather have small windows sort of like this in the wall instead of like big, tall glass windows, because you're not only letting a lot of sunlight come in, but somebody can easily sneak up on the property and like look inside. But let's just see what happens to this person, shall we?
Now, the layout of the property is important. The road leading to their house ended right at their forked driveway. Go left, and you hit a carport. That's where everyone normally parked. Go right, and the driveway dipped steeply into a flat area in front of a garage. No one ever parked down there. That spot was where the kids played. Bikes, scooters, toys. It was like a minefield of childhood chaos. Everyone who knew them knew that side was off limits for cars. So it's about 10 p.m., totally dark, not even moonlight. And my cousin and I are mid-song on Guitar Hero when I notice headlights from the corner of my eye. These weren't minivan headlights either. This was a lifted truck with bright roof lights, the kind you'd see on some off-road Jeep. What threw me was that the truck didn't go left. It turned down the right driveway, the kids' play area. Immediately, something felt off. I froze. I asked my cousin if he recognized the truck. He looked out the window and shook his head. No, I don't know who that is. I told him to go downstairs with me so we could check on the other kids. I didn't know what this guy wanted, but I wasn't taking chances. The baby was still asleep, thankfully. I picked up the landline to call 911, and that's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of the garage door being yanked. Hard. Someone was trying to lift it. That garage door was never used. No one opened it, not even my uncle. Then I heard the door beside it, the one with the window, rattling. Someone was jiggling the doorknob, but they weren't knocking. They weren't calling out, just silently trying to force their way in. The lights were off down there. They had to know nobody was in that room. I was whispering with the 911 operator, explaining what was happening, and my cousin was latched onto my arm. I could barely hold the phone. My hands were shaking so badly. The dispatcher told me she was contacting my aunt and uncle, and to stay on the line. I turned around to grab the phone number they'd left. And that's when I saw him. There, right up against the sliding glass door, was this massive man. Easily over 6 feet tall, wide shoulders, long, messy red hair, and a matching thick beard. And the way he was grinning at me, it wasn't friendly. It was twisted, like he was enjoying the fear on my face. Behind him stood a second guy, also tall but leaner. I couldn't make out his face, but it was clear he wasn't there to help. I gasped and told the operator, "They're at the door. They're here." My cousin suddenly said something I wasn't expecting. "Mr. Jim." I looked at him, confused. "You know who that is?" He nodded slowly, but didn't say much more. I turned back toward the door and shouted, "I'm on the phone with the police." The big guy just stared at me. He looked almost like he was weighing his options. Then, without a word, he slowly backed away into the dark. A few minutes later, we saw the truck reverse out of the lower driveway, back up the road, and vanish. I stayed frozen on the phone until a sheriff finally showed up about 25 minutes later. They swept the property and stayed with us until my aunt and uncle got back. As soon as they walked in, my uncle's whole expression changed. He was pissed. Not at me, at Mr. Jim. Turns out he was some shady acquaintance of my uncle's, someone the kids had met a couple times in passing. My aunt immediately told my uncle to tell Jim to never come back, and she meant it. There was yelling, but I wasn't really paying attention anymore. I was still processing that smile, that stare. Later, I learned my uncle had a drug problem, and Mr. Jim? Who knows what he wanted? But it was obvious he wasn't there to say hello. He wasn't just knocking on the wrong door. He was trying to get in. That much was clear. Maybe he thought my uncle had something valuable, or something else. I try not to think about it too much. Needless to say, I never babysat there again, and not long after, my aunt divorced my uncle and moved out. I haven't been back to that house since.
This is why you don't get hooked on drugs, because whoever you deal with, they want your money for the stuff they're giving you. And if you don't pay up, they're going to come in and try to beat the crap out of you and get the money themselves, or steal something of value just so they can sell and get their money back. But thank God that guy's wife stood up and said, "You better tell him not to come back." I don't blame her. You got young kids in the house. You don't want them seeing all these guys showing up. And that should give you a reality check, like you need to get off drugs altogether. There's always something that will come back and bite you in the butt.
Where I'm from, crime is almost non-existent. Like you'll hear about a stolen bike or maybe a drunk fight at a bar. But murder? Kidnapping? That stuff barely exists here. So it's not unusual for people to walk around alone at night without thinking twice. Still, I'm from a small town surrounded by thick woods, and honestly, those woods give me the creeps. I usually don't go out by myself at night, but when I'm with friends, I love the peace and quiet of a night walk.
I used to walk on our road when it was getting dark, but I usually have one of my parents walk with me and carry a flashlight because I don't want to scare no driver on the road late at night if I'm not wearing any reflective clothing. And it gets kind of creepy too because you don't know if an animal will just come out of nowhere and attack you. But also, a town that you barely hear any murder, kidnapping incidents happening, that's sort of great. I wish all towns were like that.
Just last week, my best friend and I decided to take one of our usual walks. It's a route we've done countless times. We know it like the back of our hands. We were just chatting and laughing like always, not even thinking about anything scary. The first part of our path is nice and calm, lit up by street lamps with a few houses scattered around. Not densely packed or anything, but enough to make you feel like you're not totally alone. Then we reach this tunnel that marks the beginning of the darker part of the walk. That's where the pavement ends, and a bumpy gravel road takes over. As we get to the tunnel, we notice something strange right away. A white van is parked off to the side, right near the ditch beside the road. It's just sitting there, turned off, and it instantly gives us an uneasy feeling. We nervously joke about it like, haha, someone's gonna follow us, trying to brush it off. But when we pass it, I look a little closer and swear I see a silhouette inside. My friend gets annoyed at me for saying that. She thought I was just trying to scare her on purpose. Once we're through the tunnel, the road takes a sharp left and goes uphill. It's not a long or steep climb, and once you're up, you walk down into this stretch of road that's kind of eerie. There's dense forest on one side and an open field for growing hops on the other. And at night, it's pitch black out there. No lights, no houses, just us and the gravel crunching under our feet. Still, we're laughing and talking, trying to ignore how dark it is, when we suddenly notice a light behind us. At first, We think it's just a car coming from one of the farms further down the road. That's not unusual. People live and work out there. So we casually move to the side and keep walking. Then we glance back again, and it's the same white van from earlier. We stop talking. Both of us go dead silent. The van isn't driving past us either. It's just slowly creeping behind us.
This is why you don't joke about stuff like this. You see a white van, that would have been a good time to turn around and go back before they follow you. But no, they probably think that you're easy targets and they're going to go after you and probably open the van door and kidnap you. If they're not going to pass you, you might as well just run. But really, this person spoke too soon about the van following them. They shouldn't have said that at all.
We keep walking a little faster, but it matches our pace. When we slow down, it slows down. When we speed up, it revs up. That's when I felt full-on panic set in. I bumped my friend on the arm, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Run, into the field, now." No hesitation. We both take off running, stumbling through rows of soil and plants in the hops field, trying not to trip over anything. We eventually drop down behind one of the mounds of dirt and crouch there, hearts pounding, holding our breath. The van comes to a stop. Its headlights flip on, high beams, and light up the field. Then the doors open, and two men get out. They both have their hoods up, and each of them is carrying a flashlight. They start shining the lights across the field, scanning, looking for something, or someone. For what felt like forever, we didn't move. We just stayed crouched down, trying not to make a sound. Eventually, they got back into the van, turned it around right there in the road, and slowly drove off in the direction they came from. The second they were out of sight, we bolted through the rest of the field. The houses start up again near the edge of it, so once we were back under the glow of a street lamp, we finally let ourselves breathe. I don't know who those guys were or what they were planning, but I've never been followed like that before. And that night was enough to keep both of us off that path for a long, long time.
Like I said earlier, they probably saw you and figured, oh, maybe we should kidnap them. They probably might have been child traffickers, you never know. But thankfully, they just ran back through the field and got to town that way instead of going back through the road they came on, because I figured once they walked by that tunnel, they were probably waiting there for them and caught them off guard.
This happened back in 2016, and honestly, I hadn't thought about it in a long time. Until tonight. I couldn't sleep, and suddenly this memory just crept back into my mind like some warning I almost ignored. At the time, I had just moved back to my old college town after a rough breakup. I was crashing in a small apartment with a friend and scrambling to find work. I didn't care what it was, restaurant, retail, anything. I just needed a paycheck. I was applying through all the usual sites, but I used Indeed the most because it made it easy to keep track of applications and see updates. I'd also applied to a couple places directly through their own websites and kept tabs on everything. A couple weeks into the job hunt, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The area code wasn't even from around my state, but since I was desperate for work, I picked up. A woman was on the line. She sounded professional and told me she was calling to set up an interview for a position I'd applied to. The thing is, I didn't recognize the company name at all. I had my laptop open already, so while I was on the phone, I started checking through my job history on Indeed. I even checked the companies I'd applied to directly. There was nothing that matched. Still, I played it cool and didn't let on. I figured maybe I'd applied late one night and forgotten. I asked for the address, wrote it down, and thanked her. But something about the call just didn't sit right. She was really pushy about getting me in that same evening. No flexibility, just kind of insisting I come in around dusk. After we hung up, that sense of unease started growing fast. I immediately looked up the phone number she called from. Nothing. It wasn't connected to any business at all. Then I searched the address. That's when my stomach turned. It was way out in the middle of nowhere, almost an hour's drive from where I lived, not even close to the areas I'd been applying in. I opened Google Street View and checked out the address. What I saw was basically a few rundown buildings off some exit ramp. No signs, no real storefronts, just this almost abandoned stretch of road and empty parking lots. It looked more like a place where you'd dump a broken fridge, not conduct interviews. As I stared at that screen, picturing myself driving out there around sunset, something inside me screamed not to go. It was like my whole body was warning me. I brought it up to my roommate, explained the whole situation, and even he wasn't sure. He told me I might be overthinking it, but said if I didn't feel right about it, I should trust that instinct. I didn't go. And honestly, I'm so glad I didn't. The more time that's passed, the more I realize just how sketchy it all was. I mean, a fake job interview at a remote location, rushed into happening at night? Yeah, no. Looking back, I really wish I had taken it to the police. But I had tried going to them a year before when an ex was harassing me and they barely took me seriously. So I didn't trust them to care. To this day, I don't know what was waiting at that address. But it's chilling to think what might have happened if I had actually shown up.
To be honest with you, if a company called me saying they want to interview me for the job I applied for, and I don't recognize the number or company name that they mentioned, I don't care what they say, but I'll be like, how'd you get my information? Because I did not apply for you guys. And if they just don't say anything, they hang up, that tells you right there that they're scammers. But the thing is, how in the world did they get a hold of her job application for the mother jobs that she applied for on Indeed? Maybe they were computer hackers and they just stumbled upon what she was looking for and they figured, oh, she's a good person to suck her into coming to where they're at and probably kidnap her or probably rob her. But thankfully, she did the research, and if the number did not say it was a business number, then automatically that's red flag number one. And the address that they give her was just a bunch of remote area with no businesses in sight, then that's red flag number two. She didn't even have to go out there and investigate that. Really fishy. But she did the right thing and got out of there when she noticed that something wasn't right. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Midnight Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Squirrel channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.